25 most of the time.
All right, here we go. Another square dance callers talking. Tonight, I'm going back down to Florida, one of my favorite states for sure. Tonight, I have Hot Rod Barngrover. How are you, sir?
Good, Charlie. Glad to see you.
It's great to see you, sir. I picked up on that Hot Rod. I see you had a new Facebook post that put that out there. It's great, man. Great marketing. Love that Hot Rod tag. So we'll stick with that. I'll call you Rod tonight. So
we can thank Tom Miller for that Hot Rod.
Okay.
Tom Miller's when Tom Miller gives you a name, it kind of sticks with you.
I agree 100%. Let me get my volume here. I think I'm good. Yeah. Let me do this. Perfect. All right, buddy. Well, again, I really appreciate it. We met through Facebook several years ago now. You know, we've had a little relationship there going back and forth, and we've bumped into each other a time or two at different conventions, things like that, and we had a chance to talk. Got a few chances to see you call at conventions and things like that. So let's start off where we start with everybody, man. When did you start square dancing?
1972.
Okay.
At Greenfield, Indiana, at a club called the Riley Wranglers in Greenfield, which are still going today. So Riley Wranglers Square Dance Club in Greenfield, Indiana.
Okay. Now, was that because family did it, or how'd you get into it?
Friends next door.
Okay.
Next door friends, they did it, and they had a daughter that wanted to take it, and she needed a partner, and there I was.
Okay.
I kept going, and she quit.
That's the way it happens sometimes. The woman usually gets you in it, and the man's the one that wants to stay around. And of course, the man's usually the one that wants to become a caller afterwards. Kind of go that direction. So, did anybody else in your family dance, or was it just the neighbors?
Just the neighbors.
Okay.
Mom and dad didn't do nothing. They didn't dance or nothing like that. But the neighbors got me into it, and I actually worked for him at an airport in Greenfield, Indiana, answering the phones, growing up, riding horses and things like that.
Okay. So now, are you born and raised in Indiana? How'd you end up in Florida? Tell me about that.
I was born in Fort Benning, Georgia, Army base. Then they moved to Greenfield, and I was there up until I was about 18 years old to move to Florida.
Okay. So Florida just kind of got in your blood, and you wanted to stay in Florida?
Yes. The company that I worked for in Indiana, they moved to Florida.
Okay. Well, that certainly helps the plan of staying there. I broke out my one Florida thing. I got my Florida Gator hat on. And a buddy of mine has this website, the Bryce Talks Metal. So you go down to Florida when you're 18. You got some square dancing in your background. When did you start deciding you wanted to try and call? How'd that work?
Well, I think at 18 I quit dancing. Then there was a little guy that was trying to get something going about 3 years later, and I knew how to square dance, so I went there and joined his class, and then he did it for a couple of years, but he couldn't get the public interest, so he went out of it. And then I married my wife, and we needed something to do, so I told her when I was a kid that I used to do this square dancing stuff, and she looked at me and she rolled her eyes and says, "I'll try anything." So I found a club in 92, and it was on a Sunday night, and she took lessons, and she loved it the first time she ever did it. She laughed and laughed, and she just loved it. And so we did that for 2 or 3 years. And then we started building a house, so we dropped out of it until 2010. We decided we would like to get back into it. So we found the club in Casselberry. And so we went there, and we did the lessons. We started the lessons. Well, about a couple weeks into the lessons, I went up to that caller that was there and told him years ago I used to do this, but I don't remember, how much I remember. So he said, "Well, I'll tell you what, why don't you dance with my wife to see what you remember, and see how much. So the next tip got up. She got me up to dance, and they couldn't believe it. I remembered a lot of the stuff, so I didn't have to go through the class. So I was more of a helper than anything. So, but we all did. And to get into my calling, he had one of them. Does anybody want to try to call?
Okay.
And torture dance, torture callers.
Mhm.
And I said, well, when I was 13 years old in Greenfield, the caller there let me do it, a singing call. It was El Paso City. Put the ladies back to back in the men promenade.
Mhm.
So I memorized that whole back of that record, just memorized it, and I still remembered it in 2010. And back then in Indiana, we danced pretty quick. You know, I danced to callers like Johnny Wyckoff. Larry Letson was probably my favorite caller.
Very nice. Okay.
I was 12 years old. We had a young group, kids square, and every time he came in, he was just fast, and we loved fast, you know. So Larry Letson, we always liked him. So, but other than that, in 2010, I did a singing call, and I couldn't believe how many people slowed down since
Oh yeah.
20, because when I did it back when I was 13 years ago, I did it at speed and everything was going really good. Then I did this, and that's where the hot rod hash come in, you know. So
Okay. Very nice.
And it's very hard to get out of that little rhythm, you know, until Gene McCullough was the caller of that club that I was at, and he's actually the one that got me started in this. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be doing this.
Okay.
And he's out at he lives in Ormond Beach, but it was Casselberry Hoedowners, and I thank him a lot for this.
Very nice. Okay. So when you start going, you know, some people it comes natural, some people it doesn't. What I mean by that is the choreography part of it. You know, a lot of people can grab a record. Back then it was records. Now it's all digital. But you could get something. You could sit back, you know, for a couple of days and get it karaoke style, and memorize it and use the same patterns and everything. What and who worked with you on the choreography, and how well did you take to that?
Well, it was tough. It was very tough from the beginning because you know, he was giving me my pointers, what to look for. He tried, you know, different. He gave me like 10 records, and they all had different styles, choreography on it. So I started learning that, and then they let me call the pattern to them, and then I would try to, you know, I get my box corner, and then I had to work on my timing. It was that's how I started. Then I started. He let me. Then I started going out to other dances, and people are letting me get up and call, which I thought that was great.
Oh yeah.
And I met John Saunders. He was real big here in Florida. I mean, everybody knows him. He's a national caller. I know he just passed away a while back. So, but he's helped me a lot. Bill Chesnut has did a lot for me, and I went to the camping groups, and he's kind of put me under his his wing, and taught me about a lot of stuff. Between Bill, Gene, and I never really went to a caller school because of FCA has a caller association that every year we have a clinic. We have a coach come down for the weekend, and they would have a clinic for us, which I got to know Tom a lot, you know, Jack.
Yep.
A lot of them guys, and they've been great too. Every question you ask, they always there to.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, and I've told the story so many times. I've ran into so many callers outside of the podcast, whether it be at conventions or whatever. And, you know, 99.9% of them will, you know, you've got to eventually say, hey, man, I got to go, because they will keep just giving you stuff and say, hey, do you have any questions? You know, the most welcoming group of men and women that I've ever talked to, really, when it comes to this type of stuff.
That's
And
right.
it helps too, like you were saying, I was fortunate starting out that whenever I went to a club in the Georgia area where I was dancing, and the callers all knew that I was working on it. I was starting out. They were, hey, go grab your records out, because I never brought anything in, but they were like, hey, go get a record out of your car and bring it in here. And, and they helped me to whatever extent they could, hey, do this with your patter, that type of stuff. I had one, I would write down patter. I'd write down about 2 minutes of patter, and I'd go up there, and he would say, hey, let me see what you're going to do tonight. And I would show it to him, and he would wad it up in a ball and stick it in his back pocket. And he's like, go after it, Charlie. And so, guys like that would put me out. And then I started going to caller schools and all that stuff. So with the choreography now, and I see that you do a lot out of Florida. What part of Florida are you in right now?
I'm between Ormond Beach and Ocala.
Okay. Okay.
Johns River there, a little town called Pearson.
Okay. So now when you started, hey, I want to take this to the next level with your choreography and your singing calls and everything, how much choreography do you work on? Do you do it daily, weekly? How do you do your choreography?
I probably do it daily, write something down with checkers or something to, and just trying to get the flow. But I try to use something from the box and just see if I can switch it up somehow that's different than anybody else, which is hard because you can only do so much, but then everybody else does it.
Yep.
It's very hard to write something if nobody, somebody out there did something,
Yeah, I agree. Somebody's got it, but you can't. And you have clubs and you have regulars that dance to you all the time. You can't run the same thing out there every week, every other week, because that's what the dancers will fall off and people won't want to come to see you. I encourage people to go to other callers. I'm like, hey man, there's so much out there. If you can find another caller, go to them and listen to them. Absolutely come back to me, but go see what else is out there. Oh my goodness, that's good stuff. Now with the mentors and everything you've mentioned, and when you started into the calling, if there's anything you could do different, what would it be from the beginning?
Boy, I'm kind of the guy that took advice from it all.
Okay.
I don't know if I would do anything any different because I asked a lot of questions and they were willing to help me. When I first started though, I thought it was more of a territory thing that, you're in an area and you got callers in the area. I don't know how much they would want to help you because if you're new and you might be taking their spot. You know what I'm saying? But I found out later on, especially a new caller, if a caller knows you're going to be new in the area, they see a lot of callers come and go.
Yep.
So they don't know if you're really serious. So it took a while till they realized, wow, he is serious.
Yep.
Then they really started helping you because I think from the start, they didn't really want to help too much because it's one of them come in one day and they won't do it again, but they had to make sure that I was serious.
I agree. When I say I don't tell this story a whole lot, but when I started in 2010-ish, there was probably a group of 5 of us, all different ages, but there was 5 of us that really got going in the Kennesaw, Marietta area that I'm in Georgia. And right now there's 2 of us left, me and a good friend of mine, Sean Butler. And he's just tearing it up in Kennesaw. But we're the only ones, the rest of them, they didn't want to do any more work with it. And that's fine. It's not for everybody because it's not easy. There's not, and I came up with that question because if I could do it different, the first 2 years, I did nothing but singing calls. I was super happy with it because they're easy. I'd learn it like a karaoke song, go up there and I could do it. And everybody was like, man, that's a really good song. But I wasn't learning. I was learning to watch the people, but the choreography, and I struggled, and I still do. I struggled for the first few years. And I wish I could go back and start with, hey man, just do choreography. Doesn't matter how bad it is or how you can't get to the corner, just figure it out. So I would do that over. And there's some, you started out with the choreography and also that's outstanding, man.
Yep.
Now, like I said, we have seen each other at conventions Do you do any traveling with your calling outside of Florida?
No, just when I go someplace like Gatlinburg,
Mhm.
I stop in a little. It's a Georgia called Dixie Grands
Mhm.
in Bartow, I believe. Cartersville, Georgia, I believe.
Yep.
They this would be my second time. I called there last year, and they offered me to come back again this year on my way to Gatlinburg.
That was in
So,
Bartow, you said?
well, it's called Bartow Dixie Grands.
Bartow, yeah, in Bartow County. Yep. Good folks, really good dancers up there. When are you going to be there?
I'm going to be there July 29th. Oh, yes, July 29th, Monday night.
All right. Let me see what I got in July.
Yep, July 29th. Cartersville, Georgia. Yeah.
It is July 29th. That's a Monday. I'm just regular work. I might try and get up there, brother. That's outstanding. July 29th, Bartow. Love Bartow.
Yes.
I
good
didn't
people.
get up. I actually had a dance last year when you were up. I couldn't
Right.
come up and see you. That's another thing I do. And, whenever anybody comes through town or within 50, 60 miles of me, absolutely, I try and go out and support them. One, because I don't ever get to see you.
Right.
But two, we get to spend a few minutes and I'll put my phone on the stage right next to you, and I'm absolutely going to figure out something that you're doing, and I'm going to make it my own at some point. I'll give you credit for it, but I'll do that a lot when I'm calling. So it's just research.
Research.
Well, with that, with going to Tennessee and Florida and the places you call in Florida, are there any venues or anything that really stand out to you that you really enjoyed, whether it be a floor or a group of people, anything like that?
I got to call it what is it, the Barn in South Carolina, Columbia?
Yep.
Called the Barn, I think. That was the first one I ever called to going to Springfield Nationals.
Nice. Okay.
So a lady there was a cure named Fran Merchant, and she wanted to know if I would like to call on the way up. So I stopped at the Barn in Columbia, South Carolina, and that was neat. And I didn't know that probably a dozen of my Florida dancers met me up there.
Oh man, I can't beat that. That's
That was the easiest dance I could have probably ever
Mhm.
did, because them 8 dancers that were there, I knew them.
Yep.
So I could sight right off of them, and it was an easy dance.
That's awesome, man.
And so I went to Springfield, and when I got to Springfield, that's the first nationals I called to, and it was on a Saturday at noon, and I probably had 50 of the Florida dancers. They're singing "Happy Birthday" to me before I went to call on stage. That's kind of embarrassing. That was great.
No, that is great. Yeah, I tell all I've got one club right now, and I tell my dancers and the people in the area that know me in Georgia, I'm like, man, it is such a relief when I look out at the Tennessee State Convention or Alabama State Convention or National Convention, and I see I only need 3 people, but if you can give me 4 people that I know in the same square, I'm just like, oh, that's the best.
Makes you go.
You know, and I will if I find somebody. I've already got a few that are going to the nationals. I'm like, hey, when you see me, you go to the number 1 spot for me, and I can work off of that. So that's awesome, man. You just go to a dance in South Carolina and run into some of your dancers. You can't beat that, brother. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. It was just, because the first time there, you want to do the best you can.
Yep.
And when I seen them come through the door, man, it just like I just was breathing, and it made an easy dance, fun dance.
Oh, absolutely.
And even with Gatlinburg, it was the same thing. We have a lot of us from Florida go there, and it's a lot of the same thing. But usually it's not that easy. You know that. Usually, especially you go to that you don't know, that you have to really work hard at it.
I agree.
And
I'm a little, I got it easy because the first national convention I ever went to was the one in Georgia about 6 years ago now, 5 years. I'm not making this up. It's 3 miles from my house. And first national convention I ever went to. And so every stage that I stepped onto, I looked out, I knew 10 people on the floor somewhere. And I was like, oh, this is great. And, you know, I think then I went to like New Mexico with Caller Lab or somewhere over there. And I looked out and I'm like, I don't know anybody here. This is going to be a trouble, you know? So that's when you start writing folks down and all that. And I try to avoid that, but no, man, that's great. And I tell people that the dancers, it's awesome when you see them come out. Well, Rod, about you, any stories that most of us wouldn't know about you, whether it be square dancing or not?
Well, I had a heck of a life when I was growing up, man. I used to fly airplanes. I played bass guitar in a band. I drove tractor trailer. I did. I got to work on fire sprinklers and condos, and bowling. I did it, you know.
Now with the and I do with square dance calling, you run into some actual people that have musical ability to play instruments. What, and I ask people this, if you're not listening to square dance, what is your genre? What do you play bass wise genre of music?
On my bass, it's mostly country and 50s rock and roll.
Okay.
And when I played in a band, it was mostly Folsom Prison Blues and Sweet Home Alabama.
Nice. Okay, nothing wrong with that, brother. That is awesome.
From 9 o'clock to closing time, it's Folsom Prison Blues or Sweet Home Alabama. They wanted that all the time. I don't care how many times you play that, as long as you play that, they're just as happy as
That's outstanding. Awesome.
That's why I like the dancers that support me. I've been very lucky with the dancers of support me because they've been with me a long time, especially the Casselberry Hoedowners. They were there when I first started, and how terrible I was, but they always was there. They're, you know, I was the best one in their heart.
Yep, I understand.
Terrible, you know.
And that's really what's nice when you have a group that follow you. You know, no matter where you call, they are going to be there if they can be there. And I've got a handful of dancers like that now, and it's awesome. You know, you walk into a place, you don't even know they're coming, and you're like, oh, that's that couple, you know, from my club or from another club that knows me. And that is such a relief when you see things like that.
When I first went to the clinic, joined the Florida Callers Association clinic, Tom Miller was the guy that put the clinic on.
Mm-hmm.
He got, you know, all the stuff to call and things like that. And I come up to call, and he just shook his head. And for many years, well, not now, every time now he hears me, he tells a story that when the first time he ever seen me, that he is not going to make it. I just kept going, but you know, maybe that's the push that Tom put in me a little bit, I guess.
That's awesome. I talked to Tom Miller last night. He called me and we talked for about 30 minutes just about stuff in general. Awesome guy. Yes. Definitely somebody to have in your back pocket. That's awesome. Tom is a great dude.
That's true.
Now we talked earlier too with how many clubs do you have in the Florida area that you call for?
I call weekly. I got 5 a week that I call for. Then I call 4 times a year for the Orange Blossom Squares. Mm-hmm. Then I do a festival with Keith Stevens at Strawberry Squares in Plant City. And then I do February, I do a festival called the Winter Festa, mm-hmm. with Tony Oxidine and Jack Platties.
Okay.
And this year I get to do the Daytona Beach Ball with Tony this year.
Very nice. What now? I know when the one with Tony and Jack, that's right before the cruise, typically every other year when they do that. And what's the other one in Daytona? When is that?
That's in December 6th and 7th at in Daytona. He calls it the Daytona Beach Ball.
Okay, Daytona Beach Ball. Roger that.
Okay. I've been very lucky, you know, them to help me out.
Sure, absolutely. And we were talking to, I see on Facebook, and I wanted to ask you about this. You'll put out, does anybody want to dance in Anthony? I'm assuming it's Anthony, Florida. Is that correct? And so, how does that work when you do that? What are you doing?
Okay, ever since COVID came around and we was off for 2 years, a lot of the dancers, I felt like there was a reason, some of them to get out of it because of this lockdown we had. And so now the dancers that are starting to come back, and we put a list out, especially in the summer times, to see if we get enough people to have a dance.
Okay.
I like to have 2 squares, to make it nice because people like to rest and things.
Yep.
So we've been very fortunate that we've been dancing every week, but they still like to have the emails to go out to make sure. That's how that would work.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, because we've been on Facebook together for a long time, and I see that put out, and I was like, man, that's awesome. I love what he's doing with that. And I was wondering what kind of turnout you got. And 2-3 squares in a lot of places are good right now. Now if you can get more than that, that's awesome too.
Mhm.
But well, you've got quite the background we've talked about. Some more about you, just personal stuff. You got any favorite foods or anything? You're in Florida, so is it seafood? What's your favorite food?
Seafood, not too much, but if we go to a restaurant, it's got to have a good salad bar.
Salad bar, okay.
Salad bar, and we like barbecue, but it has to have a salad bar. There is some salad bar ever since COVID, like they took the salad bars out, but some of them still got it. But I do like the salad bars.
Very nice. Okay. And you've now, and I know we've spoken before, but one of our favorite places for my wife and I is Florida. Now she's a Gulf Coast fan. She loves Tampa Bay. I do too. But I'm also a fan of St. Augustine down into Daytona, all the way down to Cocoa Beach. Any favorite restaurants or anything you want to put out there?
We probably spent a lot of our time at Hooligans.
Hooligans. Okay, I've heard of it.
In Ormond Beach. We have another couple that we spend a lot of time with, probably our best friends.
Okay.
And what we do is usually, if I'm not square dancing, we're going out to eat with them, going back to their house, watching movies.
Nice. Okay.
That's our evenings really.
Okay. Well, that being said, favorite movies? What's just a few of them?
Well, I can probably watch that My Cousin Vinny all the time.
Okay.
And actually, the new Top Gun movie was pretty good. The last one that was made.
Yep. No, I agree. Very good. Very good Top Gun movie.
The first one, honestly, yeah, but we love action. None of the drama too much, but mostly action.
Okay. And I ask everybody, Footloose or Dirty Dancing, if you had to choose.
I probably like Footloose.
Okay, outstanding. Very good. That being said, and I ask this is something that always pops up around here. A movie that if it's on TV or whatever, that you'll stop everything and watch the remainder of it.
A series like Justified.
That's fine. Justified, okay.
We liked that. Matter of fact, we watched it when it first came out, the series, and we end up watching it again. So that's a good movie, Justified.
I've got to get into Justified. I've heard about it for a couple of years now.
Very good.
And I've gone through a ton of series, but I definitely need to get into that. On the square dancing part of it, do you have any favorite singing calls?
Wow. I'm more, I guess, a high energy caller.
Okay.
Yes. It's got to have a really, wow. Lately, now I just bought Simple Man.
Oh.
I do like Scott's stuff. I got a lot of his stuff.
Okay.
I like Bob Seger,
Mm-hmm.
and also lately I bought some stuff from ESP. Tom Miller had it out, and also I like Dan Norby. Dan Norby's got some YouTube stuff out that I had to have.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I like about Dan is he knows what I like. Dan knows. So if he comes up with something, he sends me a YouTube video of it and says, "Hey, I think you might like
Nice. Yep.
and I listen to it. Yeah, he's right. It's got a beat to it. And I don't care if they're really that slow, real slow stuff. It's just like Orange Blossom Squares. I think you're going to be scheduled there.
I am. I've got Orange Blossom coming up into this year. Looking forward to it. Tell me about them. What about Orange Blossom Squares?
They're great people.
Okay.
They're great people, and they you get. Well, I had like Sunday night. I think I had like 8 squares. But you're coming in December. Matter of fact, I'm doing their New Year's Eve dance in this year, and they get pretty good. They're very energetic, and they love to dance. It's like when I call there, I know I'm faster than some of the
Yep.
dancers, but that's what they expect from me. They don't expect anything less. When they get me, they know what they're getting, and they don't want me to change for nothing.
No, that's really nice to have when dancers know you, and that's what they expect, so you can be yourself. Yes, I am there November the 10th.
Yes. Yep.
November the 10th, I'm at Orange Blossom. Looking forward to that. I've always wanted to get down there. I've heard about calling down there from other callers. Teresa Berger with Caller Lab is actually down there in a couple of months, and she's going to pass through here. I put together a dance for her as she's coming through Georgia on her way down there. So yeah, that's awesome, dude. And I knew you called there. And it's that Simple Man with Scott Bennett off of, I don't know if it's one of his 3 labels, Crest, Acme, or Peak. It's I think it's Crest. But that Simple Man, going back to the Georgia convention, I was with the live band. I had a spot with the live band with the Ghost Riders, and I had picked Simple Man. And just luck of the draw, Scott, who I knew pretty well at that point, he was the MC. So he introduced me, and I did Simple Man, which he was the one that produced. And it was just off at the very end. If you go on YouTube and find that video, you see him off to the side actually singing along with me. And dude, that was just awesome. God, and of course I love Leonard Skinner. You can't beat that. So Simple Man's awesome. Maybe we'll do Simple Man, man. When we go now, with talking about that, are you going to be in Wisconsin at the Nationals this year?
No, not this year. But we will be at Shreveport and Waco.
Okay.
I'd be there that. I never went to a Collar Lab. Eventually, I like to get to the Collar Lab. I know South Carolina is probably my closest. So
and it's South Carolina next year, and it's the 50th. It's going to be gigantic, huge, whatever you want to term you want to use for it. Man, if you could come up for that, I think it's Greenville. Am I correct? Greenville, Marcia? Caller Lab, is it in Greenville, South Carolina? Yep. Greenville, South Carolina, booking agent. It's in Greenville, South Carolina. Man, if you could come up for that, granted, it's in Florida. Greenville's nice. I've been there. I've been through there a couple times. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's about 3 hours from me in Georgia, straight out I-20, I believe. So man, that would be awesome if you could come up and I will tell you, I'm a huge Caller Lab fan, and those Caller Lab conventions with the sessions they have during the day, on top of every night they have some kind of dance, whether it be record labels putting on a dance or an SSD dance or whatever. And of course the callers that go up there, they're showing off for their caller buddies who are dancing. So it's a ton of fun. Absolutely, you need to come out for that, brother. And if you do, once you make that plan, let me know. I would love to get together with you while we're out there. That'd be great. Now, we had talked about this before we started recording also. With as much as you call, you have some dancers that come to you twice a week, 3 times a week maybe, or whatever. How do you go into programming a dance, keeping it fresh?
Well, on my Square View, of course, when you light up you do a song, it lights up for you in green. So, but I try to write it down. But some of my songs, especially if they're new, people don't get tired of hearing them yet.
Right.
So, they ask for it. Well, won't you do this one? I just did that one last week. Well, that was sounded good, but you're still practicing it. You need to do it again, which I don't mind. I mean, because I am practicing it, but me calling the dance is, even if it's an orange blossom, anything, usually my first tip is something that I know, now orange blossom in my clubs, I don't worry about it. But if I go someplace like Dixie in Georgia, I would do the first tip, what I know, and then to see what they're doing and see, oh, okay. Then I venture out the second tip.
Okay.
And then, I know who I'm looking for, and then of course the first song's an upbeat song, and I might, next one to be probably upbeat, then slow it down.
Right.
Usually my tip, I try to workshop something that
Okay.
people did in a long time. If it's just spin chain through, that
Yep.
something. Usually the third tip.
Yeah, because calls like that you don't hear a whole lot anymore. Spin chain throughs, spin chain the gears. You
Right.
just always exchange the gears. You
Exactly.
toss that in there, and dancers really enjoy that. When you come down. I just did a dance 2 nights ago, and I had the boys cutting and flipping a diamond. And after I finished that tip, it was just for fun. After I finished that, I had a couple of the guys come up to me and asked, "Man, that was awesome. We never get to do that." And I was like, "No, you don't, because you hear diamond circulate, cut the diamond, flip the diamond, whatever."
Well, Caller's got calls. Yep.
And so I said, I put them in the position the first time, and I said, "Cut the diamond," and they're all waiting, and I said, "Cut the diamond," and there was a hesitation. They were like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, that's not what you call there," and I'm like, "No, it is." And then I said, "Let's see if we can, the boys," and you'll mess some guys up doing that. But yeah, man, it's great to workshop stuff, even if it's a club that it's not yours. If you go out and just say, "Hey, let's just work on some stuff," you're making better dancers, and people like that, the variety.
Well, they sure appreciate you, because the other caller coming in after you, they're going to do that.
Yep.
And then while you teach them that,
Now, I should have asked you this in the beginning. What level do you dance to and call to?
A2.
A2. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Outstanding. Now, with that, and I ask everybody this. This is just your own opinion. Do you have a favorite call of mainstream plus or any of that advanced?
Well, I probably use Dixie style more.
Nice.
Because I could do a lot with it. The boys in the middle scoot back, girls circulate. I just could do a lot more with it.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome.
Have the boys circulate once and a half, girls you turn back, and you got your hourglass there, it's different stuff we can go do.
Yeah, no, when you call it Dixie style, most people want to get out of that left-hander immediately. I'm just like, "Hey, let's stay in here a minute and do some stuff." So that's awesome. I love the scoot back. Yeah, that's awesome with the boy scoot back.
Dixie style, you can at least explode the wave and chase right. You're just so, a lot you can do.
That's awesome. Man, if you could call a dance anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
I thought about that, and I'd be honest with you, I'm more happy what I'm doing now. To call out of the country, I never really thought about it.
Okay.
I like what I'm doing in Florida. I do like to call if I'm going someplace, like in September, I go to Missouri. Then I have a friend, Kim Bursing. He's a caller in Missouri that I go see.
Okay.
And so when you know you're going someplace, schedule dance someplace. But I do that, not just to have something special.
I agree. Now, as far as callers go, and since you've been doing it for a few years now, do you have any advice for callers of any range of calling?
Well, I learned when I was calling, started out, listen to the mentors, especially the older callers. For some reason, these young callers, this is my opinion, that they think they got it and they won't listen to the older callers. The older callers has been there and they do it. They know what's right and they know what is wrong. And they will steer you in the right way if you just ask them.
Yep.
But some of the people coming up since 2 or 3 years, "Oh, I got this," so they won't take advice from the older callers. I think that's wrong.
I agree. You know, and I don't know, and of course, I don't want to sound like the old man in the room, whether it be generational, but you know, I see it in my regular work in police work when you get the rookies. When I came out as a rookie, you know, it was just like I was wide eyed, and anything you told me I would do, or you know, and hey, let's look at it this way. And it's the same thing with calling. A lot of times you'll find a caller that, hey, how long have you been calling? About 3 years. Oh, you know, and but they have their own set ways. This is what I want to do. You know, is that a great idea? Probably not, because I've gone to, I don't know, 7 or 8 different caller schools over the 14, 12 years I've been calling. And I still, if somebody came up to me at the national convention in 2 weeks and said, Charlie, you should really try and do this next time. If it's a caller that I know, I'll be, thank you. I appreciate that.
Same way.
With the people you have in Florida, I'll tell you this, because, you know, talking about my wife or whoever, some of the dancers I have, a lot of dancers will come up and go, oh man, I love that call. You're the greatest caller. I love what you're doing. I love that. You know, but you need somebody to say, hey, that song's not for you. Hey, stop saying swing through every time you get them in that position, you know, because you don't necessarily hear it when you're doing it, you know. And so my choreography is I try and do variety, you know. I'll sit back and I'll think, man, you have not done tag the line all night, and I'm in my 4th tip. And so then my choreo, I'll start pushing toward tag the lines. So man, I love what you're doing, Rod. I would love to get down and call with you. You need to come up here for Caller Lab in South Carolina next year, and because I won't get to see you at nationals. Now, are any other conventions or anything set? When is the Florida State Convention?
That is January 17th and 18th.
January 17th and 18th.
17th and 18th. So their new facility we was at last year. Very nice place. It's in Deltona. It's a very nice place. It's clean. It's
That's East Coast, isn't it? Deltona. That's what I thought. Okay. Yep. I might have to look into that. Because we do have plans at some point in the next couple of years. I'm probably going to move to Florida, probably the Gulf Coast right now. And so I was talking to a few people about joining the Florida Callers Association. As long as I have the intention of moving, because you're supposed to live in Florida, makes sense. As long as you have the intention, and we do. So I would love to come down and get into the Florida calling stuff. That's awesome.
I'm the Florida president. I'm the president of the Florida Callers.
Okay, I did not know that. Outstanding.
My second go around. So
okay. Well, you probably know, Scotty Shearer over on the Tampa side. Man, awesome guy. Not the best at texting. I text him a lot, and it takes him about a week before I hear back from him sometimes. But quick story on Scotty. He had moved down to Florida, and I'd called a couple times for that club in Tampa. Gosh, I can't remember. It's something Promenaders. I can't remember what it is. The club that he has now, which is doing really well by watching Facebook. He's got a ton of squares out there with students, and I went down there and I'd called for them a couple times, and they said, "Hey, we've got a club caller now. His name's Scotty Shearer," and I'd never heard of him. And I went down there and I start talking to him, and I'm like, "Yeah, where are you from?" And he's, "I'm from Ohio." And I was like, "All right." And I said, "You know some of these?" And first person I called from Ohio was, the king of Ohio, Jack Platties. Right. And he was like, "Oh yeah, me and Jack used to do cruises together." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so we start talking. And I was like, "Man, I had no idea." He's an awesome dude, fantastic caller. And the 2 or 3 times that I've gone back down there and it was on a dance night, I'll go over there and he's like, "Hey man, get your stuff, come up here." We do the whole dance together. Right. Just an awesome guy. I love Scott.
Yeah, I like him very well. We did a few things together before.
Well, Rod, I've got you down for July 29th. You're going to be at Bartow, in Georgia. So I'm going to make every effort. I'm going to definitely get up there. It would be awesome to see you and your wife come down when I get to Orange Blossom.
Yes,
in a few months. That's going to be outstanding. I'm looking forward to that. And Man, it has been great talking to you. Any other stories you want to tell about your call or anything that we didn't talk about?
I think you got it all.
Okay. Rod, I would love to do this again sometime, man. I tell you what, let's plan on this. You've got a little over, a few months. Plan on Caller Lab, South Carolina. And then right after you finish Caller Lab, or about 2 weeks later, after you get settled back in Florida, let's do another podcast. We'll talk about Caller Lab and everything else. How about that?
Sounds great, bud.
Rod, it's been my pleasure, brother. This is going to be coming out in a couple of days. I'm looking forward to it, and it's been great talking to you again, man.
Thank you, buddy.
Rod, you have a good night, man. We'll see you. All right.
Four ladies chained over and back, I still feel 25 most of the time. Left Alabama and girl, go side door. Left Alabama weave the ring. I was a young troubadour, swinging promenade. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. Well, now the heads promenade and go halfway, walking square through. All the way and then you'll swing through, my friend. Boy running a Ferris wheel. Now the center square through to three. Swing and promenade. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. Alright. Well, now the heads promenade and go halfway, walking square through. Better? All the way and then you swing through. Yeah, that's much better. Boy running a Ferris wheel. Now the center square through to three. Swing and promenade. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. Four ladies promenade one time. Get home, swing that man. He's gonna scare him if I sing with him. Join hands, circle to the left, go round. Left out man, weave the ring. I was a young troubadour, swing and promenade. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. Here we go, sides. Well, now the sides promenade and go halfway, walking square through. All the way and then you'll swing through, my friend. Boy running a Ferris wheel. Now the center square through, get three. Swing and promenade. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. One more time, side. Well, now the side promenade and go halfway, walking square through. All the way and then you'll swing through again. Boy running a Ferris wheel. And now the center square through to three. Swing and promenade. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. Side space. Grand square, still feel 25 most of the time. I still raise a little cane when the boys left Alabama and we talk some pretty women. Lord, I'm still right there with them, singing above the crowd and the noise. Four ladies chained over and back. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. Ladies and gentlemen, Tony Oxendine.
Charlie Petrie, y'all.
Thank y'all for letting me do that. I appreciate that.